This morning's show is about Down syndrome, but our guest is uplifting. You'll meet her coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Keller Williams Realty, Myrtle Beach Central, home of Team Whiteman. We're focused on the Grand Strand Down Syndrome Society, and we're visiting with its secretary, Tammy Harrell. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming in
Thank
early
you
on a
for
Wednesday
having me.
morning.
Thank you for having
A
me.
lot going on with the Grand Strand Down Syndrome Society. Just a little older than a year now.
Right.
Right about a year.
That's right. We're a new organization that just formed in the Grand Strand. We originally kind of spun off from Charleston, Low Country Down Syndrome Society, and there was such a great need in this area, so here we are.
There really is a great need in the Horry, Georgetown County area.
Absolutely. The closest society was in Charleston, and of course that's, depending on what part of the county you're in, it's a long ride for the support and the activities. So we felt the need, and our group was formed.
How prevalent is Down syndrome in births? Is that a pretty regular occurrence, even using national statistics or otherwise?
Right now, 1 in every 800 to 1,000 babies born in the United States will have Down syndrome.
Is that right?
80% of the babies born in the United States are born to mothers under the age of 35. And of course, that is because more women are having babies under the age of 35. So it's fairly common. I think it's more common than people realize.
Yeah. And for viewers who may not have a familiarity with Down syndrome, what exactly is it?
Down syndrome, also known as trisomy 21, is when a child genetically, the 21st chromosome actually has 3 instead of 2. So the baby's actually born with an extra chromosome, and that's on the 21st, hence the name trisomy 21.
Okay.
Some of the things affiliated with that at times tends to be the little bit slanting of the eyes. About 30% of the children born with Down syndrome have heart defects. 8 to 12% have gastrointestinal problems. There could be a higher incidence of leukemia, issues like that.
But there's no way to, you said that the eyes would be one, I mean, there's no way to know that a child has Down syndrome looking at him except for possibly that eye issue?
Some genetic, physical features. A little bit of, like I said, a slant of the eyes tend to be a little further spread apart. Noses tend to be, the bridge in the nose tends to be a little flatter. Arms tend to be a little shorter. They tend to be a little smaller. At birth, the back of the head tends to be a little flatter, and there's a little bit of, I want to say extra skin at the nape of the neck. An extra fold sometimes tends to be there. Sometimes the crease in the hand, there tends to be one crease instead of where we have several. Various different, physical features. Basically, facial features tends to be the...
What causes a child or parents to, or a mother to birth a child with Down syndrome? Is there any known cause? Is this...
There is no known cause. They don't know why it happens. It doesn't... it's not a parent's fault. There's nothing they can do to avoid it. It just happens. It's just nature, and it happens.
And is the Grand Strand Down Syndrome Society trying to raise funds to help find a cure, or is it principally to help support parents that have children born with Down syndrome?
Our organization is looking to just provide awareness, support to other families, awareness to the medical community, and just helping other families know that they're not alone, that they're, we're out there, and we're one happy family, and we just want to provide support for each other.
Great, good. Now, have you been personally impacted by Down syndrome?
I have. My husband and I, Jimmy, we have 4 children, are ranging from 12 years old, who's Cody, Gabrielle is 4, Aiden is also 4, and Avery Grace is our daughter who has Down syndrome. She's 14 months old, and she is our last child. So
and she's your last child?
She is,
yes.
Yes.
Made a conscious decision. So, and you said your 4th child, who's 1.
Yes. And I was one of the older moms, maternal age. I was 40 when I had Avery.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really know if that played a part, but they think it probably did. Maternal age tends, they've found that in children also with Down syndrome, a lot of times maternal age does play a part.
Mm-hmm. How was that? When did you first find out that Avery Grace, had you all determined her name and everything prior to finding that out, or
No, we actually didn't. We didn't develop her name until later on. But we found out at 20 weeks I had amniocentesis, and I've had amnio with all my other children as well.
Sure.
So we knew what the outcome possibly could be. But I did have the amniocentesis, and it was 20 weeks. We got a call from my OBGYN on the phone, and she broke the news to us on the telephone, and I had to meet with her the next day and discuss options, what some of my options were.
What are there options that are oftentimes put in front of parents? Are there common options? Are there, without getting directly into detail with that experience with your OB-GYN?
I found that for me, there wasn't a lot of information. It tended, unfortunately, go to termination.
To terminate the pregnancy?
Yeah, and that tends to be, at this point, I think, the way people, the only option people feel that they have. 95% of the births in South Carolina are terminated. Very small percent, 5%, go on to carry.
You say 95% of the births that a parent knows, or the parents know ahead of time, that find out that their child will be born with Down syndrome.
Parents who find out in utero that the child has Down syndrome, 95% terminate. 5% go on to carry on the pregnancy. So we knew at 20 weeks that our daughter, we knew it was a girl, and our daughter had Down syndrome.
Why do you think that rate is so high, Tammy? That's an alarmingly high rate. You said 95%.
95%. I think people aren't given the options. I think that's presented, a lot of the information that's out there is very old. There's a lot of doom and gloom. This child will never develop, will never be able to keep up. The child will never be able to walk. There's a lot of myths. There's a lot of improper knowledge nowadays. And I think a lot of times in the medical community, that's what's available. And I think that moms get that kind of information. It's scary. I mean, it's terrifying. The fear of the unknown, and not given other options or giving accurate, clear information scares a lot of people.
Well, another reason why viewers need to take the time to learn more about the Down syndrome, as well as does the Grand Strand Down Syndrome Society have a website or a phone number that a viewer could call to learn more?
We do. Our website is www.gsdss.net.
Okay.
If parents or to-be parents or anybody wants more information, they can also contact us by phone. It's 843-267-2581.
Okay, 267-2581 and gsdss.net.
Correct.
That's very important. Of course, I'm sure the website's got links to other national places that there'd be a vehicle to learn more, or you all probably have some detailed information, or even a little bit of information on there, just anything. Now, do parents oftentimes find that they, I guess it's difficult to think through that aspect of when you make a determination to carry the child to term, do parents ever look into possibly, or is adoption ever a method? Or is that ever a viable option is there a need?
Absolutely. There is a very, very long waiting list for parents who want to adopt Down's children, a waiting list that goes on for years. And many parents will never get a Down's child because of the waiting list. The demand to adopt a Down's baby is just incredible. And I think mothers also don't know that when they realize they're pregnant, and that there are other options, that, adoption is certainly a very strong alternative.
You had shared that before we began the interview, so I wanted to make sure there was an opportunity to get that out, because that is a critical thing. When you talk about that simple aspect, those powerful numbers that 95% of parents that find out their child will be born with the Down syndrome actually go into termination mode and terminate the pregnancy. And I guess they're finding out at levels as early as 20 weeks, or even oftentimes earlier than that.
They're usually finding out, I believe it's 16 to 20 weeks. So there's a very small window of time to make that decision.
So during the second trimester, they're oftentimes finding that out, and knowing that there is such a waiting list for parents who would love the opportunity to adopt a child with Down syndrome. would possibly open the door to more parents
Absolutely.
thinking seriously about carrying the child to term and
Absolutely.
providing that alternative for parents that may or may not have the ability to have a child.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
critical. That's critical. You know, when you think about some of those early steps for you and Jimmy, had
Mm-hmm.
you all faced some issues with tough pregnancies earlier on?
We did. My first 2 pregnancies were fine. My son Cody and Gabrielle were full term, big babies. We had our son Aiden very soon after we had Gabrielle, and Aiden was a preemie. He was born 5 weeks early, so we experienced the NIC unit, intensive care for babies at at McLeod.
At McLeod.
And we went through a really tough time. And then we got pregnant with Avery about 2 years later. So there was somewhat of a fear there anyway. I was concerned about having another preemie. I had some medical problems myself that were going to be very important in my delivery and in my care through the pregnancy.
So 5 weeks early, earlier this week on Monday, the day after Easter, we had Brian Simpson, whose son was born about 11 weeks early. And to hear, as we listen to those experiences that he and his wife went through, waiting almost 2 weeks before they could hold their son for the first time. I guess with a child born 5 weeks early, you probably didn't have to wait that long. It was
a week. I believe it was about a week.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Still a week,
It was
though.
Still a week. Went through a lot of the same things, the incubator, the tubes, having to hold the baby against your skin. It was quite an experience. Going through that was much more difficult than dealing with a child with Down syndrome.
Is that right? That's part of what I wanted to get to.
Absolutely.
If that was if those were some of the issues that you faced in birthing Avery Grace. Was she born full term?
She was born 4 weeks early, but it was
Okay.
considered full term. She was born with an emergency C-section.
Okay.
She was completely healthy and beautiful. We have no medical problems whatsoever, no heart problems. Eyesight's perfect, hearing is perfect at this point, so we're very blessed. She's a healthy, beautiful little girl.
Then what would distinguish her, if you don't mind me asking, how, with all of that being as healthy and sounding as virtually perfect as
Absolutely.
how would she be distinguished between another child? What are some of the distinguishing features, if you don't mind sharing with viewers?
For Avery,
Right.
her eyes, for me, I think she's perfect, but
Right.
the slant of her eyes, her nose tends to be a little broader at the bridge. She tends to, their muscle tone sometimes in their mouths is weak. So sometimes they have a tendency for the tongue to stick out a little bit. Hers is a little stronger than I've seen on some other children, but for Avery Grace, it would basically be her eyes, the slant of her eyes and the width of her eyes.
And will there be developmental issues as relates to learning for Avery Grace, stuff that you all will face in the future that you've, I guess, in studying Down syndrome now and having a better interaction with a lot of the other families and parents involved in the Grand Strand Down Syndrome Society? Is there some anecdotal discussion about what some of the issues that you may face with Avery Grace going forward?
Most of every child's an individual. They all have different, like any normal child,
Sure.
they all develop differently. Avery Grace tends to, she's not walking maybe as soon as my other children. She didn't move and roll over quite as soon as my other children. We don't really know yet. It's a little too soon to tell. She does receive physical therapy and occupational therapy, and both her physical therapist and occupational therapist have been wonderful and really have made a difference developmentally for her. But as far as her development in school, her learning, it's still too soon to tell. It could be very mild, or it could be a little bit more moderate.
If the discussions are often coming up with OBs in those situations, that termination is at least something to contemplate, and if 95% of the pregnancies are terminated after finding out, what was y'all's initial reaction? How did y'all, what were those discussions like?
We expected it, but you never really are prepared for it.
Right.
Abortion for us was not an option. We knew we were going to go through with the pregnancy anyway. We just wanted to be better prepared if we did find out we had a child with Down syndrome. The medical community, our OBGYN, leaned more towards the side of termination. So it took my husband and I really going out and finding information and learning what we were about to deal with or possibly could deal with. We did go to MUSC and see a geneticist. She was really helpful.
Right.
Gave us the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, she couldn't sway us either way.
Mm-hmm.
We also had a level 2 ultrasound at MUSC, and when you realize that that's a baby, you know, and
Right.
that really helped our decision. There was no question in our minds we were going to go through with this.
I'm sure viewers would want to know, did you change OBs? How did that interaction
change
happen
OBs, yeah, I
afterwards?
did.
I mean, what
I did.
Do folks search for an OB that would be more supportive of the decision to carry a child to term?
I feel like that, you know, yeah, if you're delivering babies, that maybe, you know, you should be open-minded.
Right.
I did switch OBs after Avery Grace was born, just for my own personal reasons.
Right, and I know that's very
Yeah.
personal.
No,
I'm sorry.
absolutely,
It's
for
just,
my own
I'm sure a lot of
personal
viewers would
beliefs.
want to think, what,
Sure.
how do you interface?
Sure.
And then I'm sure there must be parents that do not change and have those issues wondering in their minds,
Right.
is this doctor going to be on board? I mean,
Right.
you know, clearly there's some amazing OBGYN or
Absolutely.
OBs in the area. We're very
Absolutely.
thankful they continue to do on a daily basis what they
Absolutely.
do. And probably some of them would want to find ways to support the GSDSS group
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
visiting your website.
Right.
Do you all accept donations locally?
We definitely do. We
Good.
accept donations. We have a program going right now, Think About Ink. We are accepting used ink cartridges, computer printer cartridges,
Good.
and we get a percentage of what we turn in for recycling.
Okay.
We also have a golf tournament planned for August the 18th. Prior to that, August the 17th, we are sponsoring a dance, and we will have at 7 p.m. In Pawleys Island.
Okay.
And we will be having Chris Burke, the actor from Life Goes On, will be there, and he will have his band will play for us.
Great.
And the golf tournament, Chris will also play at the golf tournament. Our website has tickets, times, and if you want to be a sponsor, all that information is on our website.
And there, it also provides an information where folks could drop off those printer cartridges.
Absolutely, yes.
Good, good.
Yes.
You said August 17th for the
dance.
for the dance
At
itself.
7 p.m.
Okay.
For the golf tournament, it is August the 18th at Caledonia.
Great, nice course.
And we're looking
yeah.
for sponsors, and it'll be a
Oh,
lot
good.
of fun.
Okay.
It'll be a
So
great
there's some
day.
sponsorship opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely. And our website gives the information about if you'd like to be a sponsor.
Good. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And International Paper and Outback Steakhouse are sponsoring the event.
Okay.
They've been wonderful.
And some of the ways you all have funded the activities up to now, Tammy, what are some of the ways? Have you had another golf tournament in the past? Is that
No, this is our first. This will be our first annual. We've also done sold T-shirts.
Right.
Chick-fil-A has been wonderful. They donate a lot to our organization, food, their time. They've allowed us to have a day, a Down syndrome day, where we've set aside a certain day where the customers who come in and purchase food, a certain percent goes to our organization.
Okay.
So we've gotten a lot of wonderful support in the area. Local restaurants just have really been incredible to us.
That's
supporting
tremendous.
our cause. Absolutely.
That is tremendous. And if a viewer wasn't going to be in town on August 17th or 18th, but still wanted to support, they can go online to www.gsdss.net to get a mailing address, as well as to
Absolutely.
call that 267-2581 number. That's
Absolutely.
great. Who are some of the other folks involved on your volunteer board? And I assume it's all volunteers, and are you all a 501c3?
We are.
Good.
Diane Grover is our president.
Okay.
Her and Courtney Fields is our vice president. They basically got the organization going. Have worked very, very hard to get this going. They're both incredible women. Diane has a daughter, Mary Ellen, with Down syndrome.
Okay.
And Courtney has a son, Kobe, with Down syndrome as well.
And what are their ages? Do you know?
Mary Ellen, I believe, is a little over a year and a half,
Okay.
reaching close to 2.
Right.
I believe she may actually be 2. Kobe, I believe, is close to the same age.
Okay.
Boy, yeah.
So the three of you all active in, and I know there's a lot of other volunteers and
Sharon
leaders,
Hughes, right.
but all with children around the same
Absolutely.
age.
Yes.
Right.
Sharon's child is Sharon is our treasurer, and I
Right.
believe her daughter's a little old.
And that's important for parents who have children that are a
Absolutely.
little older, boys
Absolutely.
and girls, to be able to
We do.
interface and
We do.
gauge some of the things. What are some of the important things that you'd want viewers to know about Down syndrome, about children with Down syndrome, and about parents that are faced with the recognition that their child will be born with Down syndrome?
I think it would be that these children are children. They're our children first, and the Down syndrome is just a side bar. That these are our kids. They interact the same way. They develop, just at different rates like all children do. They have talents. They have likes. They have dislikes. That it's an incredible experience that I would never change for anything, and I wouldn't give 100, normal children for Avery. I just would never. It's been an incredible experience. We've learned more. My husband and I have probably learned more from her than she's probably going to ever learn from us in a lifetime. She's just amazing.
That's great.
And we, by far, need her much more than she needs us. She's just brought so much to our family and our kids.
That's tremendous.
It's teaching our children, compassion and patience and understanding. So it's been wonderful.
We've got a couple of minutes, Tammy, and that opens the door to just what are some of the myths that folks face or they hear about, or some of the things that they may be told, not necessarily by medical professionals, obviously, but just told about some of the myths that they hear about that possibly cause that 95% of parents to think about terminating the pregnancy. What are some of the things they're being told?
I think parents are told or have beliefs the child won't live very long. If the child's born with heart defects, the baby won't make it, which is a total myth. I believe that all of the heart defects at this point with children with Down syndromes are repairable and are repaired. And these children go on to live very long and healthy lives. I believe people have learned over the years that these children cannot learn. They'll be institutionalized their whole life. They'll never be productive citizens. They'll never work. They'll never live alone. And that's not true. Many children grow into very productive adults with jobs, with sometimes spouses of their own. They get married, and they live very productive, healthy lives.
So those are big myths, but that simple, the fact of that extra chromosome, that's a powerful thing for folks who may not understand medicine or how births occur normally. That one extra, and trying to figure out how that happens. I guess that is something. Is there research being done on a regular basis to try to get to the bottom of that? And is Down syndrome more prevalent than it was, let's say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or less prevalent? Is something being done?
There is no cure, obviously. I think they can find what happens, why maybe it happens. I really don't know. I think that it's the Down syndrome is out there more. The education's out there more. The outcomes, the statistics are out there more. So I think because it's been brought more out to light that people are more aware. But I would probably have to say, in guessing it's still the same rate. It's just people are becoming more aware of it and dealing with it in a much different way than they did in the past.
I think visiting, there was a national website, ndsccenter.org, which I guess the National Down Syndrome Congress, their center talked about possibly even a slight reduction. I didn't mean to put you on the spot asking that, but some of the, so clearly the getting the word out, and it may be that just the, in whatever levels, research and dollars that can be utilized to fund not only support groups like y'all's, but also any national research that can be going on. There's surely, and I'm sure, some links to them from y'all's website, which is great, which is great. So surely that aspect of making sure that parents know there are lots of myths. There are clearly realities as well.
Absolutely.
And a lot of parents have to go through those.
Absolutely. You just have to weigh all your options. You just have to look at both sides.
That's great.
Pros and cons, yeah.
Tammy, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Tammy Harrell from the Grand Strand Down Syndrome Society. Coming up.
Baby.
We need her in our life far more than she'll ever need us. Listen to a parent talking about their child. We need her in our life far more than she'll ever need us. Those are powerful words. You never know what a parent's thinking. You obviously, as Tammy shared with us, don't know what a parent, a husband and a wife, or a mother and a father of a child, whether it's at 20 weeks or 16 weeks or 24 weeks, are thinking when they're sitting with a medical professional or someone else talking to them about their child and the recognition their child will be born with Down syndrome. It's a big deal. Think about that in a room, sitting there, white walls, and listening to someone, words coming out of their mouth as they're sharing with you that your child will be born with Down syndrome. What are you thinking? What are you going through? A lot of parents are clearly thinking and think that through and unfortunately make the decision. We heard Tammy share about that. 95% of expectant mothers will terminate that child. They've heard the myth that Tammy was sharing. The child won't be able to learn. Clearly a myth. They'll never be a productive citizen. Clearly a myth. They'll live a short life. Clearly a myth. Take the time to learn more about Down syndrome. Go online to gsdss.net. That's www.gsdss.net. Or take the time to pick up the phone, write this phone number down. The area code's simple, 843-267-2581. 267-2581. There's a lot of myths about children with Down syndrome. You hear a loving mother, a loving parent say those words.